Hey everybody, I'm going to wait a second for some people to get on here. You see my title, Holdsworthian Bitonalism. I thought it was an appropriate subject to talk about today, and it's a term that I just made up, which I thought was kind of a cool term that describes some of the stylistic features of Allan's playing. Particularly from a tune called Funnels, which is on Entavicron. I was really blown away by a solo piano version by Steve Hunt, who played with Allan, and I believe it was Funnels that he played. It was really amazing. That was on his Facebook page. But I was listening to Entavicron, and it occurred to me that talking about the structure of what Allan does and some of the harmonic language that he uses, which is actually very similar to Aydin Esen, who I've featured on here before. They happen to be doing very similar things right at the same time period too, and this use of bitonalism, which is, some people call it slash chords or triads over bass notes, but there are particular ones. I started last night on a video called Slash Chords, and essentially this was how to use major triads over bass notes. Now, I haven't done minor triads over bass notes, and there's plenty of ones, obviously there's 12 of those as well. Many of which are really incredibly cool sounding chords too, that are really useful, that Allan will use, that Aydin will use, that you guys will start using now too. So anyways, but I started with major triads over bass notes. There's some concepts in particular, though, that I want to demonstrate here. I'm going to start in here on the board, and then I'm going to go into the keyboard and talk about it. So one of the things that I'm going to flip around here if I can. Okay, there we go. Holdsworthian Bitonalism. All right, so hopefully you guys can see me okay. Okay, can everybody see me? I'm going to walk back here and look. Everybody see me okay? Nice haircut. I just got my haircut. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I wrote a little example. I wouldn't say I wrote it. This is kind of something that Aydin would play or Allan would play. It's in the style of what they would do. What Allan would do on Funnel, what Allan was doing on Funnels stylistically. But we're going to use something, we're going to use the octatonic scale or the diminished scale to demonstrate this using triads over bass notes. And we're going to move them in contrary motion, and we're going to show how you can use them in composition. So I'm going to start here with a major chord, D flat major, and I'm going to put it over C. Now D flat major over C is a C Phrygian sound, okay? Then I'm going to take this triad, I'm going to move up a step to E flat, okay? And I'm going to go E flat over B. Then I'm going to move to E over G. Now, if you look at the pattern here, D flat to E flat is a whole step, E flat to E is a half step. I'm going to do a whole half pattern using these triads, and I'm going to F sharp here, major. But this is going to be over F. Then I'm going to go G over E flat. Then I'm going to move to A over C. Okay, so whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. Continue on half step, B flat, major over B. Moving to C over A flat. Moving to D flat over G. Moving to E flat over F sharp. Then we're going to have a sort of resolution here, and I'm going to go to an E sus 4/3 over, what did I do? Over F, okay? Now, this is also for you film scorers, for doing, writing film scores, contemporary classical composition, and fusion playing, really modern jazz playing. You'll see how these work. But so I'm following a whole step, half step pattern through the diminished scale with a this is kind of a jumping off point out of the progression. And then the progression is going to go into F sharp Aeolian, resolving to F sharp major. Whoops, F sharp major. Everybody with me here? F sharp Aeolian, so this would be from, that's the sixth mode of A major. And F sharp major obviously is in F sharp. So now we're going to take this show on the road here, in here, and talk about it. Hopefully you guys can see me. I'm going to bring it in here, but I'm going to flip it around and go like this here. Now, I haven't done one of these like this, but I'm going to try here. Let me lower this. Let's see if you guys can see me here. It works perfectly. Plug it in. Thank you. I like my studio here. But that's kind of where you guys can kind of see where my whiteboard is in relation to the rest of it. You guys can all hear that, right? So, let me show you how these sound when you're doing this bitonalism here. Okay, so one of the first chord I'm using is a C Phrygian chord, I call it, but it's D flat major over C. The way I'm voicing the chord is I have the triad is in second inversion. All the triads are in second inversion. They're going to move like this. So it's D flat, E flat, E, E, F sharp, G, and then, let me see where I go here. Let me read it here. D flat, E flat, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, up to E sus4-3, and then we're gonna resolve it to F sharp Aeolian. Now, when you put the bass with it, somebody just wrote chromatic or modal. This is bitonal, actually. Okay, these are all in different keys. The first chord, C, this Phrygian chord here could really be in, so if you have the D flat major, right, over C. If you think of it, it's like a D flat major 7. That's another way of looking at it. But the sound of it, the way it's voiced, is obviously more like a bitonal chord. Okay, a bitonal chord means that there's two tonalities present, but it's not a polytonal chord. A polytonal chord would be if I had C major and D flat major. It's a much different sound. Listen to it. That would be a fully polytonal chord where I have a C, I put a C major triad with a D flat major chord. Now, Allan, for example, because of playing a 6-string instrument, he didn't really do fully polytonal chords because you only have 6 strings. There's a few you can actually play on the guitar, but it's extremely limited as to what kind of chords, actual true polychords you can play with 2 full triads. I can probably think of about 10 voicings or so that you can actually play 2 full polytonal chords. So D flat over C. This is E flat over B, E over G, F sharp over F, G over E flat, and then I'm going to move up. Okay, so G over E flat, then A over C, then B flat over B. Can you guys hear me actually as I'm talking? Let me turn it down just a little bit. B flat over B to C over A flat to D flat over G to E flat over F sharp, and then I'm going to go F sharp Aeolian. And then to F sharp major. Okay, once again. And then to resolve to by having the triads and bass notes moving in contrary motion and having, I'm not really hitting any, I don't think anywhere in there is an inverted triad. We talked about this last night in the slash chord video where if you take an E major chord, you have E major, then you have E over G sharp and E over B. So you have these repeated where you don't have actually a full bitonal chord, because it's just a three-note chord. You at least need to have 4 notes in it, okay? So all these chords have 4 notes in them. This does, so if we analyze these, this would be a C Phrygian chord, D flat over C. Okay, so if it's E flat over B, does anybody want to guess what that is? What scale that comes from? E flat over B. From C major, what? Okay, so this is part of a dominant diminished sound down to another dominant diminished sound. E over G is like a G13 flat 9, but it doesn't have the 7th in it. And then we have F sharp over F, which is F Phrygian. And then we have G major over E flat, which is another diminished sound. And then I go to A over C, which is 13 flat 9 sound. And then I go to B flat major over B, which is a tonic diminished sound, or a diminished major 7. Then C over A flat is a Lydian augmented sound. That would be A flat Lydian augmented sound. And then I've got D flat over G, okay, or C sharp over G, which is a dominant 7 flat 9 flat 5 sound. Then I've got E flat over F sharp, or we could say E flat over G flat, resolving to E major over F, which is another tonic diminished sound. But then we have to go somewhere with it. That's a great, and you might want to do something. I don't know if you guys can hear the bass. I played. So I've got my E major chord. I'm outlining F major, E major over F major, full polytonal. And then I'm following the voice leading into that F sharp Aeolian chord. And I could do something in the inner lines. And then I'll go down. So that is how to take these chords, if you listen to Allan in Funnels, he's using this kind of language, this bitonalism. In this case, I'm using an octatonic scale and following it up so that I have some type of a structure with it. And then I'm following it with contrary motion in the bass. So your bass line is this. But I did. So, once again, listen. Bass note. Then I move up the octave. Then. So right there, because I'm running out of room down here, I could keep the C going, but you guys aren't going to be able to hear it. When I hit my C, A over C, which is like a C13 flat 9 sound, and then B flat over B, and then I go to I go to C over A flat, which would be an A flat Lydian augmented sound. So once again, those triads are moving just like they are in a diminished scale. But you have to find a way to get out of these things, okay? A lot of times, that's the trickiest part. But these type of movements, bitonal movements, are really great ways of creating these long, expansive areas of tension and building, and knowing which ones actually sound good together. I mean, I could have gone if I was going to. On the first, I could have gone from here. Instead of going to here, to my E flat major or B, I could have gone E flat major over A, which is a totally different sound. Then I could have gone to, I went there, but I could have gone to a dominant 11 sound like this. Check it out. Not as powerful as, or this. That's cool. Now, all of these have chord scales that are associated with them. This is what I was demonstrating last night in my video about slash chords, is that every one of these chords has a chord scale associated with it for improvisation. Yes, I will show you, Stephen, 10 polytonal chords on guitar. They're really hard to finger. That's one of the problems, because it's very hard to play two triads together with the guitar, with the tuning of the guitar. Having the B and E string, part of the reason that the guitar is tuned that way, obviously, is for barring and to make triads movable with bar chords. And this is why it makes playing polytonal chords really difficult, unless you do things like use your thumb to play certain notes or your thumb to play two notes, and then you get into really awkward hand positions that are not easy to switch between them. So bitonalism on the guitar is actually much preferable to polytonalism, really just because you're limited in what you do. But this is the kind of stuff that you want to use, I would say, more in composition, if you're into film scoring or you're writing modern classical music, or you're into, or you're playing stuff like Allan, that's a modern fusion of the two styles. I said this the other day about Allan's playing. So Allan was a rock player who played jazz over modern classical chord progressions. I thought that was kind of the best way that I could describe his harmonic language and what he did. So he's playing really sophisticated chord scales over these really sophisticated chords with a rock sound, but he's improvising like a jazz player. But these chords, though, you don't really find in fusion other than in Allan's music or in Aydin Esen's music. You will find isolated chords. I talked about it last night. Mostly artists that you might find some things. You'll find occasional things. You'll like the last chord in Oleo by Miles Davis off Relaxin', where they play. The song ends on A major over B flat, which is actually a really sophisticated sound for playing over rhythm changes, and they end on that. But if I were to think about tunes that actually have real bitonalism, there was a Keith Jarrett tune that's in the real book called Choral. That's got some triads over bass notes, but Unity Village by Pat Metheny, that has triads over bass notes. That has E major over C in it, and then in the D pedal section, it has E flat over D. And I think that there's one chord. Well, he's playing B flat major over D. But that tune in particular, and Pat will have some of these on some of the early Metheny records. He would use bitonalism. And this is back in the 70s. You'd hear some ECM artists. Those are pretty much the only ones that were in jazz that Keith Jarrett would do it. You would hear you would hear some bitonalism in Bill Evans. You would hear some bitonalism in certain ECM artist music. I should actually do a breakdown of that, of finding which records have it. But you don't have that much of it. You'll have it in the heads of tunes. Now, I will put it in things like if I did Blue and Green, I would, that's a great tune, Miles Davis tune. It's really a Bill Evans tune. But that would be a great tune to do, that you could use bitonalism. And you'll hear it in Jobim. And I did an example yesterday where I played... I did a 2-5-1 in F major, and you hear it in a lot of Jobim compositions. So 2, 5, 1, and that E major, so that's E major over F, resolves up to an F6 or an F13 chord, F major 13 chord. That is actually a really common deceptive cadence or deceptive resolution there. It's common in bossa nova music. It's common because Jobim used it a lot, and it's common in jazz. It's really, a lot of bebop players will play and improvise on the one chord in a 2-5-1 for a brief moment. Ba 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 ba. You'll hear over ba 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 ba. You'll hear that sound. That's a really common bebop sound. And what that is the soloist is implying a tonic diminished chord for a split second before they resolve it to the tonic chord. So that is a really common jazz device where bitonalism is used. But this type of thing where you're using multiple chords in a row that are bitonal chords, what you need to do is you need to have some type of structure to it. The only way that it actually sounds good is by having a structure, whether it's, and it can be multiple structures. It can be that you have lines moving in opposite directions, which I did. So I've got contrary motion, right? And I've got a line that's moving with major triads through the whole step, half step diminished scale, the tonic diminished scale. So there's two structures that are laid upon it. If I hit, this is the important thing. If I were to play something like this, or think about this here. If I were to play something where, this would probably be the best example. See, so I've got, the second chord is E flat major. So if I were to go, instead of going, If you have chords that don't have the same complexity level, it doesn't work. It actually interrupts the flow and the tension within the progression. So you really have to know where you're going and what types of chords are put together. So what I did, so you can go D flat over C to E flat over B, or you can go D flat over C to E flat over A, but you can't really go D flat over C to E flat over B flat, because you've actually reduced down to a 3-note chord voicing, and that takes the tension out of the progression. Even if it's happening quickly, you have to keep the same tension level to keep it building. One of the reasons in the slash chord video that I did that I put, E major over F, flat 2 in the bass. And I actually grouped them in 2 categories. I grouped them in the categories of major triad with the flat 2 in the bass, major triad with the flat 3 in the bass, major triad with the flat 5 in the bass, major triad with the flat 6 in the bass. These are triads, major triads with the major 7th in the bass. These are triads that have a complexity level that are consistent with one another. But when you do something like major triad with the, if I were to do, let's say, an A major chord over E, or if I were to do an A major chord over D, now that is something that you would hear in fusion, A over D. It'd be a D major 7, 9 with no third, okay? So, but it doesn't have the same dissonance level as some of these other chords that I'm doing. And what you need to do is you need to retain a certain level, dissonance level throughout this in order to reach that jumping off point where you jump back into tonality, or at least some semblance of tonality. My jumping back in the progression I did was when I went to E over F, and then into F sharp Aeolian. Now that brought it back, and then I used F sharp Aeolian to F sharp major. That's kind of like in the Thomas Newman cue that I talked about in Donna Lucia, where he does E flat, or he does E add 9 to an E minor 9/11. It's beautiful. So I did it with F sharp Aeolian to F sharp major, or I could do F sharp sus2, or F sharp add 9 if I did. So I could go. So that voicing is F sharp, D, E, A, B, G sharp, and then I'm going to want to resolve it, but I can have the 9th in there as well. If I had a line in the middle, da, 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 and then I picked it back up. So Aeolian to major there is a parallel minor to parallel major move. But that has more harmonic consistency and will reduce the tension level and make the listener feel like you've arrived somewhere. So these these bitonal triads that Allan would use, or Holdsworthian Bitonalism as my new phrase. Even though I have the same recordings of Aydin Esen playing at the same time in the mid-'80s using the same type of vocabulary. There are very few people that were doing it, using them chord after chord after chord. But Allan does it in funnels in particular, and it's really amazing. You should go back and check it out. It's on Antavacron. I'm sure most of you know it that are watching here. But there's a section where he does it. I would play it, but I don't want to have my video taken down. I actually had it ready, and I said, no, I better not play it because they might take it down. because I don't remember what label it's on, if it's on Warner. I think the only Warner Brothers record they did was Road Games. I think that's the only one that would get taken down. But Pet Shop Boys Bitonalism, yes. Okay, so let me see if there's questions here. Questions. If you guys want to... If you guys want to just ask me questions right now, kind of start over. And when I don't get to the questions, once again, I want you to leave them in the comments section, okay? Oh, I have a couple announcements to make. For those of you that saw my Dennis Chambers interview, which is hysterically funny, you should definitely check it out. I've got some more special guests coming up. Mark Lettieri from Snarky Puppy, I interviewed, and that who's a guitar player is a phenomenal guitar player. I have an interview with him coming up. I have an interview with Adam Neely, who's a huge YouTuber in the same, who does music theory and is a super great guy. I have Victor Wooten that I interviewed a couple days ago that I'm editing his interview. And I've got a couple other ones that I'm not ready to announce yet. So we've got a lot of great people on Sounding Off. And let me tell you something. This actually happened because of you guys. The Dennis Chambers happened because of a friend of his, Skip, wrote to me after I talked about this in the video last week. I said, some of these people, a lot of these people I don't know. Oh, and by the way, Steve Hunt, who played with Allan, is going to be on as well. And we're figuring out a time that we can do it. And I'm going to have him talk about this same type of harmonic language that Allan used and have him demonstrate on the piano, which I'm really excited about. So those of you that know some of these people that you want to see me interview, if you want to privately write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com and send me their info or hook me up. Skip hooked me up with Dennis. He actually got me on the phone with him. And I love Dennis Chambers. He's one of the greatest drummers of all time. And I would never have been able to I don't know anyone that knew Dennis, really. So he said, he got me on the phone with Dennis. He said, can you talk to Dennis at 3 o'clock? I said, absolutely. So I got on the phone. I'm talking to Dennis. And I said, Dennis, he goes, I'd love to be on your show. I said, well, can we schedule a time? When are you free? He goes, how about right now? And I said... I forget where I was. I think I was coming back from Chipotle, and I said, "Hey, can you give me 30 minutes to get it together because I got to get set up?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." And that was a hysterical interview. And then Dennis hooked me up with Victor Wooten. So that was a really, really cool thing. So if any of you guys know anyone that you want me to interview like that you personally know, and some of the people that have been suggested, I've actually reached out to, and I'm waiting to hear back from, and some people I've heard back from, and we're going to be doing them. Now, I actually have a few interviews done, but I'm not releasing them all at once. One of the things is that some of the interviews are very long. The Dennis Chambers interview was 2.5 hours long, which I edited down to an hour and 15 minutes, and he told some more hysterically funny stories. But I felt like that Dennis's, when he talked about drum tuning, when he talked about the drum sizes, when he talked about his polyrhythms, when I played him examples, I thought that was really effective, and I'm going to be doing more of that with people, actually playing for them and ask them to talk about it. So, the podcast. The podcast, I'm going to be adding a couple more to the podcast today. So there's one up there. There's the Steve Vai interview is up there, but I'm going to start adding those now once I've honestly been, the videos that have taken me the longest to make are the Sounding Off videos because of the editing on them, but I figured out a way to shorten my time on that, which actually has kept me from being able to get into updating the podcast and putting some new content on that. Pat Martino, that is a great idea. Anybody that knows Pat, let me know how to get in touch with him. I'd love to have Pat on. He's one of my favorite guitar players. I've been meaning to do a Pat Martino show, an episode on him. Marty Friedman is definitely going to be on. Marty was going to be on, but he has a new record coming out, and he's just about finished with it, and asked me if he could come on when the record's done so we could talk about it. And I said, absolutely. So he has a new record coming out in June. So what are we in? April right now? We're at the end of April. I believe he said it's June. So he will be on in about a month or so. Pat Metheny, Robert Fripp. I don't know how to get in touch with Pat. If anyone knows Pat, I would love to have Pat on. Kurt Rosenwinkel. Love to have Kurt Rosenwinkel on if anyone knows him. George Russell's Lydian Chromatic Concept. Once again, I've promised to do that video. George, I took his class for 2 years. I can't find my book. So I can't do the book. I can't do the video without the book because I need to. I have a very good memory, but that was 30. I took George's class in 84 and 85. Now, I have a really good memory, but 32 years is a long time to really talk specifically about specific things in the book. Anyways, leave your comments here. This is going to be a short episode today. Leave your comments here. Let me know if you guys can get in touch with any of these people. Eric Johnson would be great. Slanimsky Thesaurus. Somebody was going to send me their Slanimsky Thesaurus. I can't find my book. And I need to refer to that, so I either have to buy a new book. I think maybe somebody sent it to me or something. I think somebody did, but I can't find it. I get about 300 emails a day, guys, and sorry about that. So, anyways, that's it for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. If you guys are interested in the Beato book, write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com. Leave in the comments your comments right now as soon as we're done with this. Or come back when the video is uploaded and leave your comments here because then I will read them and I'll be able to address them. Also, the people that you want to see on Sounding Off. Also, if you guys are interested and want to donate a couple bucks, $5, $10, whatever, to my, that's my PayPal as well, rickbeato1@gmail. Feel free. People donate to my channel and enable me to make these videos as often as I make them. I've got some production work coming up that, I'm hoping to still be able to keep making these every single day or as close to every day as I can. So, thank you all for watching. You guys are great. And remember, Holdsworthian Bitonalism. Let's start using that term. All right. Take care. We'll see you guys soon.